All right, we are live.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Infrastructure Committee meeting for August 30th. Time is 1:32 p.m. And I see I'm present, and Councilmember Zafar is here as well. So we have our quorum, and we will proceed on now to any. Are there any comments that we need, administrative comments that we have to get out of the way first on conduct of this meeting?
I'll have to read the Assembly Bill 361.
Thank you.
It suspends certain provisions of the Brown Act, allowing public meetings like this one to be held by teleconference to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. And at this time, I would like to conduct roll call, and I'll ask the chair to recognize me afterward to confirm certain matters for the record. Council members Zafar.
Here.
Chair Armstrong.
Here.
Vice Chair Perkins is absent this afternoon. Based on the responses to the roll call, the record should reflect that all committee members can hear the proceedings clearly. If there are no objections, the record will further reflect that each committee member believes, based on voice or facial recognition or otherwise, that the persons representing themselves to be council members are in fact council members. Seeing no objection, I will turn the meeting back over to the chair with a reminder that all votes must be taken by roll call. Back to you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's move on to item 2, approval of the minutes and approval for the meeting on May 9th, 2020. I will move approval of the Infrastructure Committee meeting minutes for May 9th. Item 2.1. Okay. Okay. All those in, well, I guess we got to do roll call. So who's calling the roll?
Yes. Council members Zafar.
Yes.
Chair Armstrong.
Yes.
Thank you. That's passed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, we'll move on to item 3, public comment. At this time, members of the public are encouraged to address the Infrastructure Committee on any item not already included on this afternoon's agenda. Members of the public who are participating via Zoom will have the opportunity to make comments to the Infrastructure Committee live through the Zoom application. The comments should not exceed 3 minutes. No committee action can be taken at this meeting on issues raised during public comment, whether submitted by email or Zoom. To comment, please click the raise your hand button or *9 on your telephone to request to speak. When it's your turn, you will be unmuted to make your comment for up to 3 minutes. After the allotted time, you will then be remuted. Just a reminder of the attendee conduct rules listed in the agenda. Did we receive any written comments?
We have not received any written comments.
Okay, do we have anyone waiting to speak via Zoom or telephone?
Yes, Chair Armstrong, I believe we do have one calling in to speak.
Okay.
Jonette, can you see?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll go ahead.
Hello, council members. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to inform you that this meeting was not sent out to the public via eSIM remote like the other meetings. However, I have been paying attention to the website, so I was able to find the meeting. I really would like to encourage you to please make sure whatever you're making a decision on regarding people's daily lives be shared and notified of the public to minimize trouble later, because the public really deserve a chance to voice their concerns. And today I would like to let you know that whatever decision you decide, you really need to first have a feasible and enforceable traffic codes for the trails, because nowadays there are bicycles, pedestrians, scooters, electric scooters, strollers, skates, dogs, infants or toddlers, all on the trails. Everybody is going at different speed. You need to have more than just a sign with almost unreadable fonts. You really need to have some sort of code of conduct that everyone needs to be able to abide to, so we know who has the right of way, and which direction, and things like that. If necessary, the trails really require further markings of sorts. I really urge you to please assign a committee to work on this. If Mr. Weeks' department, transportation, is not already on this, I urge you to please work on this. Furthermore, I noticed that dog litter is a real problem, and it's really unsanitary. So, for you to spend all these millions of dollars trying to put in a structure that encourage more of this kind of lifestyle and getting around, I really would like you to please keep in mind the quality of life for everyone, who will be using this infrastructure. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, caller, for your comments. Do we have any other callers that would like to speak?
No, we do not at this time.
We do not have.
Okay, thank you. Then we will close public comment, and we will move on to item 4, new business, item 4.1, the Bollinger Canyon Iron Horse Trail Bicycle and Pedestrian Overcrossing Project Construction Funding Update. And I'll turn it over to you. I guess Maria will go to you, and then you can introduce your staff.
Okay, good afternoon. This presentation will be provided by Robin Bartlett, who will provide the background and where we're at with the Iron Horse Trail overcrossing, and that will be followed up by Teresa Peterson, our associate engineer, who's the project manager, and will provide the details of the funding option that is being presented today. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Robin.
Great, thank you, and good afternoon. And I think Teresa has a PowerPoint she can bring up and share.
Yes, may I share my screen now? Janet? Give it a shot.
Yes,
Please do.
you should be able to.
Okay.
So great, and what I wanted to do before we get into some of the details is just do a quick recap on this project, at least on a couple of the items. The bottom line is the design is complete, and it incorporates all of the items that have previously been discussed with the City Council. And we're in the final stages of negotiation on the price. So 2 items I wanted to just recap in a little more detail is related to our agreement with CCTA. So back in 2019, City Council entered into an agreement with CCTA to manage this project. And along with that came a couple of items. And one of the significant contributions that CCTA has made is helping us do some financing for this project. So we had a situation arise back in 2019 where we had lost some of the Measure J funds that we had hoped to use on this project. And CCTA came forward with a financing mechanism that was going to use some of our return to source Measure J funds, and basically provided us a $9 million no interest loan on those funds. And approximately 5 million of that was for this project and has been incorporated into the budget for the bridge. And that, again, that replaced a previous grant that we had that had gone away due to funding issues. So that has been one of their major contributions. Another contribution that CCTA made was coming forth with the concept of using the Cmgc method for design and construction of the project. And I think this is summarized in the next slide. So what that method does is it brings along a contractor in the early phases of the design of the project, and allows that contractor to interface with the designer to help improve the design and keep costs to a hopeful minimum and reduce the potential for changes. So the way that whole process works is the contractor is selected based on their qualifications and experience with similar projects. And then they have a certain budget that they use during the design phase. The various drafts of the design are run through them, as well as through an independent cost estimator. And the contractor makes suggestions for design changes and also presents an estimated cost of construction. Once the design is complete, then the contractor presents a final cost, which is compared against the cost that is estimated by the independent cost estimator. So that is the process that we've been using. And again, the CMG benefits are that you'd end up with a more reliable cost at the conclusion of the process. It's to say, once we have that cost, we will know what it is. It will not be something that we wait for bids to come in on. And there will be reduced risk of design changes because the contractor has already been seeing this. They know what to expect, and there should be fewer surprises during construction, and we should have enhanced constructability through the project. So again, to recap where we are is the CMGC has presented their costs. The ICE has come up with their cost. Right now, and this is still changing, the difference is at about 11%. That's close to what is typically thought of as a acceptable difference, which is kind of thought of around at about 10%. And so we are now at the point where we need to make a decision about whether or not we want to engage with that contractor or go out to bid. And of course, one of the issues that has come up is you do see this cost difference and the costs are higher than expected. And so that leads to some discussion about how we come up with additional funds to make this whole project work. So I'll let Teresa dive in and go into some of those details, and either of us can answer any questions that you have at any time along the way.
Thank you, Robin. Okay, so this slide shows our proposed budget revision. The numbers that you see in black are already included in the project budget. The additional funding that's needed for construction is shown in red. So there's $4 million of Measure J funds that are proposed to be advanced to the city. These funds will be paid back over a period of time, and I'll show that in the next slide. And this is at zero interest to the city, so it is quite favorable. In addition to that, there's TVTF, so Tri-Valley Transportation Funds. The city currently has $600,000 that we can allocate to San Ramon projects that are on the list, such as this one. We've proposed to provide $500,000 of funding for this project, leaving $100,000 for later for a different any different project that we'd want to move forward with. And I wanted to mention that this total budget does still include a contingency between $1 million and $1.5 million. And because we're using the CMGC process, we anticipate that this will be adequate contingency for this project for the reasons that Robin had discussed in the previous slide. A typical project that wasn't using CMGC and was an open bid project may need 10 to 15% of a contingency, but we feel comfortable. We don't anticipate that there will be a lot of change orders unless they are unforeseen circumstances, which are out of our control. So we think that we have a good cost. We think that we have, with this additional amount, adequate funding for the project, and a very well vetted project that's went through the CMG process and has had adequate inclusion of the potential contractor from the 35% phase all the way through the 100% final plans. So we feel very confident with this contractor and with the design of the project. The next slide shows the payment schedule. So we do already have an advancement of Measure J funds. It's already been approved in 2000 of 9.2 million, and we have the payment schedule that started in 2021. So this would be an additional 4 million to that, and it would be the same type of process. These funds would be paid back between fiscal year 26-27 through 29-30, and these are estimates of the numbers. But again, both of these are 0% advancements, loans advancements, and we think that it is very favorable for the city to move forward in this way.
And if I could just jump in, because I think we dove into that financing very quickly. Just to go back a couple of slides there and talk about the cost difference. We showed the cost that came in at about a 10% difference on the ice there. But the real issue here that's at question is if you look at the direct costs and then you add in indirect costs to that. The bottom line is that the anticipated cost for this project is about $4 million in excess of what our current budget is. And those costs have been driven, of course, by our recent inflation, by supply chain issues, by project uncertainty, and of course is always just the potential for difference between very preliminary estimates made at the beginning of a project and what has been vetted through both the contractor and the independent cost estimator. So that is why we're looking for these additional funds of approximately $4 million. And then we have the $500,000 in our Tri-Valley Transportation Fund, which is actually intended to be used for projects such as this that are on the Tri-Valley SEP list. And that will give us a little bit of the money that we need to make sure we have the budget, but also a little bit of extra if we need it for either the final cost estimate for this or for adding in other elements into the project or problems that may arise. As you may recall, there were a few things that we didn't include into the design phase, such as shade structures and things like that we're hoping to add in. So all in all, we're looking for a budget of about 29.6, and CCTA has come forward with, again, bringing back the same financing mechanism we had in the past with the same favorable terms to allow us to get that additional $4 million.
And might I add that this budget allows us to keep all of the important amenities to the project, such as the landscaping, the lighting for the overcrossing, the stairs, and the seating nodes. So things that are important to the council from what we've heard, and also to the public and to the project itself. So this additional funding allows us to keep all of those things that are important to us and designed into the project with the project.
Okay, thank you. Let's go with questions, and then we'll open it up for public comment, and then we'll come back for any comments from the two committee members. And just to be clear, the recommendation here ultimately is that this is going to move forward to council, the full council, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We've got this scheduled for city council, and we're looking for any feedback from you on the financing, or whether or not we should be moving forward with this with the CMGC as envisioned, or any other comments or items that you would like us to include or think about.
Okay, all right, thank you. Let's start with questions, and then we'll go with the council members up our.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, we don't have an option not to move forward. We've invested time and I guess money into this project. There's a lot of funds here that specifically earmarked for this, right?
Yes, that's correct. And I think you touch upon the major issue there is that hypothetically, there is an option, which is to say we could reject the cost and take this out to bid. However, if we choose to do that, then we will be incurring some costs in putting together the bid package for a public bidding process. We'll incur some delays, which itself not only is problematic because of time, but also in our relatively high inflation environment, incurs additional costs. And then on top of it, it induces the uncertainty of what would come back in the bids. There's absolutely no guarantee that we're going to get lower costs. It could easily come in higher. And we would run out of time, so that if we did not accept those bids, we would then lose grant funding in multi-million dollars of grant funding because of the time limit associated with those.
And what are those time limits?
It basically would get into, I believe, we would have to have obligated our OBAG 2 funding of $4.8 million by early next year, which makes a pretty tight time frame for doing everything we need to do, and really wouldn't allow us to do any kind of rebids or changes in design in the event that the bids came back in excess of what we want to pay.
Okay, any other questions, Sabina?
Not yet.
Okay. The only questions I had really related to some information that was really, it's more history, and it was on kind of the whole Measure J, the cycle 1 and 2 versus 3 and 4 and that sort of thing. But that's not really pertinent to this discussion. I mean, we're looking at current Measure J adjustments. So I'm not going to ask those questions, and we'll move on. Let me open it up for public comment at this time. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to address this?
We have one request to speak.
Okay. Let's go ahead and bring in that speaker.
Hello, council members. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. With all due respect, my experience at the last Finance Committee meeting, judging how council members afar whipped through the Finance Committee in less than 10 minutes without even questioning any questionable numbers. Honestly, I respectfully, express my lack of confidence in council members afar's judgment when it comes to money. I would like to please ask this committee, before that this decision is forwarded to the full council, that you please run this by finance committee meeting again with the duty to specifically study all the money we currently have with the money that we currently lack, and also the consequences of, in terms of public having to put up with unfinished construction. What I as the public am worried about is that you don't have you don't have enough money to finish this project. So, 10 months down the road, there are going to be like machineries and, blockage everywhere on Bollinger Canyon, causing us to have difficulties freely moving around on Bollinger Canyon. And in the meantime, you're waiting for money to come in. Furthermore, I don't feel that at this time, when everything is so unpredictable with the inflation and everything, your bid of the labor and all the cost is to our advantage, despite that we have some money that's earmarked. And I don't know how much in portion. Maybe you have only 1/3 of money that is earmarked. Currently, we do have, but you have 2/3 that we don't have. So I really need you guys to please run this by finance committee, look at the entire numbers, and then forward it to the full council for approval. Because I noticed that when it comes to full council, you guys basically are just stamping puppets. You don't go into details and ask a lot of questions, especially if a resolution is already backed, in a subcommittee. Sometimes you just sneak it in as consent agenda, and I'm really opposed to that. So please kindly, for everyone's sake, run this through by finance committee, study it, allow public to ask questions before you forward it, and try to sneak in as consent agenda at the full board council meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, caller. Any other callers wishing to speak?
We do not have any more requests.
Okay. All right, thank you. I've got a couple comments here, but let me pass it over to council members of our first.
I think I trust our staff to make the right decision and present to us the right options here as we want to move forward. There are timelines associated with this project, of course. So we also want to make sure that we don't lose out on some of the money that is earmarked for this project. And I am, basically, Robin's been embedded in this project for years and years, and so understands the full picture and how we're managing and improving this project. I know year over year the cost has gone up, but if you talk to anybody right now who's getting construction done, the costs have doubled and tripled even on your house construction. A paint job that you could get done in January for maybe 5,000 is now costing 10,000. So construction costs, everything has gone up, and I am afraid if we keep delaying this, we might end up spending 50 million on this project if we don't make a decision in time as well. So even though it might seem expensive right now for us to go with this cost, I'm just afraid that it's not going to go down. I mean, inflation is real and it's happening in construction. So I don't know if I necessarily want to go into bid versus go with the existing option and move forward with this. And again, I think I mentioned I saw a very similar bridge in Ohio, Dublin, and very similar story, right, where the cost had significantly gone up, and it took that council 20 years to start building it. But these projects take time, they're expensive, but if you continue to delay them, we're also going to just, I think, continue to get into this. So I would love to see this start as soon as possible. I know our residents have been waiting on this for us to break ground. And I don't know if we will get a whole lot of advantages by taking it back for bid. And that's an option if anybody in council wants to explore it. But in my opinion, it's just going to further delay us. And we may not get the best bid out there. I don't know. I know we've got another project that we put back into bid. So have we had any learnings from that for to see what the market rates are right now? I think, Scott, you presented to council, right, that we'd opened up bid again. So I don't know if there's lessons learned from putting it out for bid.
I would just, I'm familiar with that project. One thing I can comment about that is one thing that you noticed there is that the bids exceeded the engineer's estimate on those things. And that's the potential climate that we're dealing with, that if bids exceed expectation and exceed our budget, then we would be in an even more difficult place and having to scramble to get funds before the clock runs out on us, and then we end up $5 million in the hole.
And if I may add to that, we had to restructure the project that we are currently bidding now in order for it to work. So we didn't add more money to it. We had to restructure it and separate out the two facilities, Doherty Station Community Center and the Doherty Station Library, which you'll hear about some more in our next agenda item.
Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. I kind of share some of those same sentiments. I mean, residents have been reminding me that they were promised something 10 years ago. And everyone wants to know, when are we going to see that bridge? And certainly any continued delay is going to just result in increased costs. I don't see the need to go back out to bid on this. I think the outside this process, the Cmgc process, although the comparison of the kind of the estimate and the Cmgc number are differ quite significantly. I don't see the need to go out to bid. I think that's just going to delay it, and we may not only delay it, but we may have to change the scope of the project, and then even in the whole bidding process extend, which is going to drive up costs just administratively. So I agree with the staff recommendation on this. I think we advanced the Measure J funds. I think we include the Tri-Valley Transportation Fund amount as well. My concern is with what I saw in the staff report about these Measure J funds. If we're going to advance these, then we're not going to have those available for other projects, to include a lot of our road improvements. And so that concerns me, and the potential decline of our overall pavement condition index and that sort of thing. It looked like it would be not a significant decrease in our PCI.
Yeah, I could comment on that a little bit more. As you know, we do a 5-year pavement management projection every year. We look forward to that. And so I was trying to compare where we might be relative to our last projection. And so the amount of money that we're talking about moving forward here in its nominal amount is equivalent to about what you would buy about 1 PCI point with. So that's not insignificant, but it's not a huge number either. But when you take into account that this is a no interest loan and there's time value to that money, that lowers that impact even further. In addition, Measure J is projected to be bringing in more money than we used in our last projection. So if you compare it to the last projection that we made, realistically, we're probably talking about 0.5 point. So it's even smaller relative to our previous projections than it appears in that just most simple analysis. Talking about maybe 0.5 point over 10 or so years.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Robin. And again, thank you for the rest of the presentation. Thank you, Teresa, for your perspective on this. From my perspective, I think we move it on to the council. We get a full detailed financial kind of lay down on this. I think this does need to go for council discussion, not a consent item. This needs to be discussed by council, and everybody gets a chance to ask the appropriate questions and weigh in at that time. Any other guidance you're seeking, or anything else you need from the committee members?
I think that covers it. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Then at this time, we will move on to item 4.2, city facility renovation prioritization. All right, Maria, you going to tee up this one too?
Sure. Good afternoon. This item before you is regarding our facilities that we have currently planned to begin our renovations. Some have started, some are in the queue. And with our funding that is applied to these facilities and all of our renovations, that is our certificate of participation. We have limited funds available at this point and found the need to bring it forward to the committee to review the prioritization and provide status of each of these facilities. So with that, I'll turn it over to Scott Renix, who will do the presentation.
Thank you, Maria. And thank you, Robin and Teresa. You're still there for the segue into this. It's a lot of the same subject matter and driving factors. So the purpose of my presentation, as Maria said, is to seek direction and feedback on the prioritization or the reprioritization of major facilities renovations that were identified over 3 years ago. But as we all know, that was a different world, and our plans need to be adjusted due to the realities of unforeseen project costs and scope, delays due to COVID, inflationary pressures, increases in construction costs, and labor and supply chain issues. During the 2018-19 fiscal year capital budget process, Council approved the renovation methodology we've been following since then for completing facility renovations, which is one facility at a time. Not only the scheduled renovations we have in our maintenance replacement plans, but also other major improvements. It's been a really successful methodology with projects completed to date. The method improves efficiencies, minimizes interruptions in revenue streams, and reduces costs through economies of scale and the construction costing. In October 2019, as you all know, Council approved the sale of certificates of participation debt financing vehicle for $24 million. And a major stipulation of this program was that 85% of that funding was to be spent within the 3-year period. Well, this period sunsets October of this year. To date, we've completed 3 of the projects we had earmarked. All costs of Senior and Community Center, the first phase of Ceremony Community Center, the interior renovations, and City Hall. We're going to be focusing today on the remaining projects, as Maria said, in our renovation plans, which unfortunately will not be completed within this time frame. They are the Doherty Station Community Center, which I'll refer to as DSCC, the Doherty Station Library, I'll refer to as DSL, and the San Ramon Olympic Pool Phase 2, which is the building I'll refer to as SROP. So just for a quick moment, I've asked Maria to explain how and why these projects, which we have not, or we will not have expended the 85% funding within this time frame, can be completed with this extended, in an extended period. Maria?
Yes, so with the COP funds and the requirements to spend about 85%, we have conferred with the bond council who has set this COP up for us. And the requirement is flexible from the standpoint of we are doing our best. It was best effort to get these projects completed because of the fact that we have the challenges with COVID-19. So we have the delays in supplies. We have issues with contractors and getting them on board and the increase in costs. They have all contributed to the delays of these projects, as well as the increase in the costs of the improvements of these facilities. So with that being said, we are able to move forward with these projects and get them complete by the end of next fiscal year, looking at but that is for what we can fund at this point. We will be able to meet our goals of spending that amount, or for that matter, all 24 million by the end of next fiscal year. And so we will be able to comply with the requirements that have been presented to us. So that's the reason why it's important to prioritize which ones we complete first, which ones are more important to apply these funds to, and which ones we can look at other funding sources and move forward with at possibly a later date.
Great. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'm going to give you a brief background on the three remaining projects that we have slated. The first project is a dual site project. As I mentioned, it's CIP 200004, which is the Doherty Station Community Center and the Doherty Station Library. And although only 17 years old for all intents and purposes, DSCC has many amenities based on useful life expectancy, which have been slated to be replaced. These items include flooring, interior painting, lighting upgrades, new front and side sliding entrance doors, water and ice maker replacement, water heater and ice maker replacement, and drinking fountains. And as with the DSCC, DSL has amenities that are scheduled for replacement also, which include flooring, interior painting, lighting, upgrades, a new back entrance sliding door, and drinking fountains. As far as DSCC is concerned, the 2020 Parks Maintenance, the Parks Master Plan suggested that DSCC should receive and can be considered for renovation to make it more functional and to provide more active use space. In addition, the master plan indicated that there is potential to repurpose some of the facility and rebrand the center to highlight its role in arts and culture. So staff, working along with our construction management firm, Roblin, identified additional renovations to rebrand this facility as an art center, which will improve and increase the facility's functionality and its revenues. A short list of additional planned renovations are as follows. We're going to create a new reception area at the current cafe area with a new configuration, new lighting, new casework, and we're going to add a security window in the shear wall for across the hallway ability to keep an eye on the gallery art space. The gallery art space will be created by removing the walls and adding a security window in the current registration area. We'll also, in the front row theater, we will make the current location of the soundboard more ADA compliant. We'll turn the first floor offices into individual art and music studios. We'll create a downstairs green room space adjacent to the studios and close to the theater. We'll relocate the existing space used by the Discovery Counseling Center to a downstairs location for easier access. We'll also add a wall at the end of the hallway in the current offices where the police department substation is, and we'll separate it from the public space. We'll replace the grease trap and replace the kitchen flooring, repair the kitchen flooring. The first floor restrooms will be renovated. We're going to enlarge the dance studio by removing the wall between the lounge and the dance studio and also replace the entire wood dance floor. We'll add a wall on the second floor to create program space and then one open office, and also removing casework from the conference room to create an open program space. That was for DSCC, for the community center. For DSL, as we mentioned, there are amenities that are scheduled for replacement, and the renovations are limited, though. Hearing that we were planning on the renovations to the existing library, the county library staff submitted concept plans to the Parks and Community Services staff, in addition to the scope we had planned. The concept plans included moving the library stacks to create a better flow for the facility, reducing the size of the reception area, relocating the children's area and the teen area to provide better supervision and better usable space, repurposing the computer lab into a quiet reading room and changing the color, decor, and furniture. And these concepts provided by the county are well over the original scope, as you can tell, of the project, and would have to be phased in over time. Of these two projects, which are the single CIP, the higher priority for the project is the renovation and rebranding of DSCC, since the library itself is still serviceable and could be completed as a separate standalone project at a future time. In addition, piecemealing the renovations only lend to higher costs, as we know, and the possibility of going back in a second phase could destroy some of the work completed in the first phase. So, as council member Safar mentioned, we've already been out to bid once on this dual project, and we have received 2 bids for construction for the renovation of both projects. And both bids were well in excess of the engineer's estimate, which was $2.15 million. And on August 9th, council approved rejecting of all these bids. With the rejection of the bids, staff and Roebelin revised the project scope to obtain better bids to be within available funding. And the 3 major changes to the package were to remove the Doherty Station Library completely and bid it separately in the future with a greater scope, as mentioned before. We're adding more working days to the renovation schedule. I believe I mentioned when I spoke at the last council meeting that the compressed working schedule really didn't work and probably lent itself to the higher construction costs. And along with the additional working days, we've lowered the liquidated damages because the new schedule calls for approximately 158 working days, which is what we feel is more than adequate. So liquidated damages shouldn't come into play when contractors figuring out their bid. Just quickly in parallel, it's going to be noted that the staff obtained also quotes from Metropolitan Moving Company for moving services for both buildings. We have to vacate both buildings, store the materials, and then move them back in. The costs that were provided by Metropolitan were almost $93,000 for the community center and $238,000 for the library. So with that being said, we're continuing negotiations with the company for just the community center to try to get those costs down to dovetail with the new bids that we're going to be getting for that facility. The RFP is out currently, and the bids are due on the 13th of September, and we hope to select and go to council for award on the 27th of September. Moving on to the third project that we're seeking some direction on. It's the San Ramon Olympic Pool and Aquatic Park renovation, which is CIP 200006. This is the second phase, which is the building project. This project covers obviously both the exterior pool area and the building of SROP. To date, we've completed the exterior portion of the CIP, which is the replaster of the 50-meter pool and the children's play pool, the deck repairs and the drainage repairs to the deck, the children's play structure, and miscellaneous other pool repairs and improvements. The total cost for these elements of projects were about $1.6 million. The expenditures were much more than we had anticipated, as more repairs and replacements were identified during the design and construction process. that really needed to be addressed immediately during the construction. And just for reference, the 50-meter pool and the maintenance shed were built in 1974. So you can see the obvious age of this facility. The remaining work to be completed is the renovation of the building. A number of the items scheduled for replacement and renovation have been identified. Again, for reference, the building was built in 1998 and is the oldest of the remaining facilities to be renovated. And our proposed renovations include complete renovation of the men's and women's locker room with new tile, epoxy floor, new fixtures, lighting, lockers, and bringing that facility up to ADA compliance. The family changing room will be made gender neutral, will be ADA compliant. We'll have new finishes, tile, and floor moisture mitigation. The HVAC system is currently non-operational, and that will be replaced in its entirety. The coach's office requires a new floor, moisture mitigation to that floor, and also paint. The lobby and reception area will be refreshed with new paint, a new bottle filler drinking fountain, refinishing the desk, flooring, and new lighting. The lifeguard office will repurpose a shower as a storage area, and we'll add an exterior window to improve the view of the deck for the lifeguards from that office. The classrooms and the storage and the hallway restroom will all receive new paint, flooring, and be brought up to ADA compliance. And the administration and the maintenance office will receive new painting and flooring. The total cost that we had budgeted for the entire project was $3.1 million. Since this additional work is pushing it well over the available budget we have remaining, which is approximately a little over $1 million, $1.072 million, we've begun prioritizing the items above to reduce the scope and thereby reduce the costs. On to prioritization. We've evaluated a list of facility renovation projects and prioritized them based on several factors. The impact on the facility and how the renovations results would more closely align the use of the facilities and the needs of the community, how the renovation potentially would improve the facility's ability to generate revenue, and of course, the cost of the renovations. These same criteria apply to prioritizing the remaining facilities. Based on this, the facilities can be prioritized as follows. DSCC. The renovation, of course, as I mentioned, will rebrand the DSCC into an art center consistent with the park's maintenance plan. The project is currently out to bid, and all provisions have been made to close the facility for 5+ months so the work can be completed. There are sufficient funds in the project, about $2.15 million that has been appropriated to complete this project, and the Art Center will result in fulfilling the needs of the community. The Ceremony Olympic Pool building, once again, is the oldest city facility identified for renovation and is in much need of repair. The focus was on the exterior amenities, and those have been completed, and the building now is in need of upgrades. So the cost estimates today are over project budget, and we're looking at prioritizing those items and possibly reducing the scope. Additionally, staff is reviewing all the COP funded projects that have occurred and any funding availability as projects are completed or nearing completion can be reappropriated to SROP. This facility renovation certainly improves the ability to generate revenue and as well as benefits the community due to its very popular year-round use. The Doherty Station Library was included as one of the facilities to renovate due to the items identified in the facility's maintenance replacement plan. Although the flooring, interior painting, and lighting, automatic rear door, and drinking fountain were identified to be replaced, all these items are in fair condition. And the concepts for renovating the library have been discussed at length with the library staff, the Library Advisory Committee, and the Library Foundation. As these discussions continue, it may be best suited to delay this project in any work to this facility so it can be done all at once. Additionally, more community input can be obtained to determine the ultimate design. And due to the limited COP funds remaining, as well as the exorbitant costs for moving and storage needed during the project, it's prohibited at this time to move forward with this project. The allocated COP funding, as Maria mentioned, for CIP 20004 of $2.15 million is for both projects. In the meantime, the funds allocated for DSL, based on the engineer's estimate of $330,000, can be reappropriated to SROP, and staff can pursue the future funding for DSL renovations. And the current state of the library will continue to serve its purposes to the community. The COP funding allocations are shown in your attachment A of the staff report packet. And of the $24 million in financing, $23,992,901 have been appropriated to CIP projects. And as I said, as these projects are completed, staff will request council to reappropriate any remaining funding to go to other COP funded projects that need funding, such as SROP and Doherty Station Library. So our next steps are to incorporate your input and into the prioritization and completion of these projects. If you have any questions or comments, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Scott. No, good rundown there. Let me turn it over to council members FR first, and what questions you have, then we'll open it up to public comments and come back to you for final comments.
Yeah. So I think if you could just quickly summarize your priority in order of where we should be going with this. I know you shared a lot of information. I took down some notes, but I would like to hear it one more time just to make sure I understand.
Well, as I stated, we have the three remaining projects. We have both CIPs and one harbor both the community center and the library and Doherty Station. What we'd like to do is focus on the Doherty Station Community Center first, which is out to bid currently, and then turn our attention to the SROP building with the funding that we still have remaining, which would not cover all the work we'd like done, and then reappropriate the funding that we have for the Doherty Station Library, and hopefully, fingers crossed, any funding that we save on the new RFP for the Doherty Station Community Center over to SRP to do the interior renovations there.
Thank you. So with the library, were we doing something in partnership with the county before, or?
No, this was once again a COP financed project, and it was based on the facilities maintenance plan, and we were just going in and doing the what had come up to the end of useful life on that plan, such as lighting upgrades, painting, and carpet. It wasn't a full renovation of the project. And as I stated, when the county heard we were going to be doing renovations, of course, they jumped on that with both feet and said, "Oh, why don't you do this, 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 and this?" Such as, reconfigure some of the stacking, reconfigure some of the space in there to move forward with that. Well, of course, we hadn't considered funding on that. We were trying to back into the funding we had for it. So what we're asking is we put the brakes on that project for right now, redesign it, and then seek other funding in the future to do it as one complete project with the additional input from all parties.
Yeah, I guess what I was also trying to get at is what is it's a county owned and a city owned library, so it's a joint venture. Do we have a balance of percentage funds or something that the county brings this much and the city brings this much to projects that might be library related?
So I have I invited Kathy to the meeting, and then she can talk some more about the library, as the Parks and Community Services Department has been very much engaged in this endeavor. So Kathy, if you're available.
She's unmuted.
Joining as a panelist.
Here.
She's coming on as a panelist.
Okay.
There I am.
There you are.
Absolutely. I would love to speak to that. So in this regard, the county used their own funding to come up with the design. We did not ask them to start out and do that, but they had a designer on board doing some of their other libraries. So they spent some money in that. They don't at this point have any money that they were bringing to the table other than the design for this renovation. It's certainly something that we could pursue with them. We've talked with the Library Foundation, and they might be interested, but it was a little too quick and a little too premature to do that right at this moment. But it's something we can explore. Generally speaking, the library and the county have not provided any support for any of the building structure things that we have done. They provide the services in the library and we handle the building and the maintenance. So it's been a pretty clean relationship that way. But in this next step, I think it is something we could look at and look for some alternative funding sources.
Yeah, and I think that's, that might be an opportunity. I mean, from everything I've seen, the county has a bit of money out there. So, but I think for the purposes of what we're prioritizing right now, yeah, I think the community center renovation and reconfiguring it to be more useful is probably, just aligns with, I think, what we've talked about and, what we've shared as well, and making it more useful. And now that we have the whole housing out there as well, we've got, I mean, a whole, if you will, city built out around that library, being able to really fully utilize, sorry, not the library, I meant the community station. And there's trails and, paths leading to it, making it a more vibrant community center would be just, I think, amazing. We've seen, what bringing a farmer's market has done. So that community really does, need, I think, the community center to be configured in a way that it's more useful. So that would be hugely beneficial to our community. So I absolutely agree that, if with the competing funds, that be our number one priority, honestly. So I think I don't have any questions right now, but I think that's, as you're prioritizing and saying, where we need to start off with the number of dollars we have, I would really align behind the Doherty Station Community Center first.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I had just a couple questions, and maybe Kathy might be better suited to answer this than Scott or Maria, but the question was really, I was looking at the prioritization, the criteria that you use, meeting the needs of the community and the number of users, that sort of thing, and then revenue generation and the cost of the projects. And I was just curious, in terms of numbers of users, I don't know how you figure that, but I mean, the pool, there's a lot of use. The community center gets big group use. I don't know how that's factored in. I would probably rank the library as probably the lowest of those three, and maybe in terms of the use. And then in terms of revenue, probably the same thing between, the pool and the community center are going to bring in revenue more so, I think, than the library. Is that a fair read on that?
Yes, the library doesn't necessarily bring us revenue. It is a great value question, of course, because they all three attract different segments of our community. Absolutely. But in staff's opinion at this point, the change to an art center would really revitalize that community center and could really bring a lot more synergy and energy. The aquatic center is in great need, and the library is also in need, but just not as in need, and could benefit from even some more further discussion about how it should be designed and looking for funds. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Another question was, when we were talking about the costs and we were talking about the kind of the moving costs, it seemed that the library moving costs were significantly higher than the potential costs for moving things out of the community center. And I didn't quite get why that was such a big difference, so much higher for the library. Can you explain that?
Sure. Well, as you can well imagine, the library has a lot of smaller moving parts. The stacks and the books themselves have to be removed and placed on library carts. The way that the moving company explained to me how they were going to do that, they were coming in, they were packing everything up onto moving carts. They were putting them in storage vans because at that cost is based on the original time frame of 3 months. So they were going to hit us for storage for 3 months on that. But what they were going to do was to move them into vans, store the vans, and bring them back. Being that these carts that they use to move all the library books and all the features in there, they can't stack those in anywhere. So they have to be single story. So you can imagine in a storage container, it's just single levels. So there's more, they would use more facilities to store those in. And then of course, moving it back, we had included reconfiguring some of the stacks throughout the library also in some of the different sections, the children's section. So that was all individually had to be replaced. So it just pushed the cost. It was very labor intensive, just pushed the cost right through the roof. It was not as simple as quote unquote the conventional move where you're just moving furniture, you're moving many other items.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Scott. Maybe the last question I have is more a technical question on CIPs. We have the combined CIP for the community center and the library. It looks like we're really talking about prioritization here. If we kind of push the library off to a lower priority, do we just continue to have the one CIP and it just stays open longer until such time as we complete the library, or do we break out a separate CIP line item for that? I'm just curious on that.
I think the better thing to do is to break it out and separate it out as an own CIP. That way we can track it. We can, if we get additional funding, we can put it towards it. It's not to say that it can't stay in there, but it'd be nice to just really truly separate the two out, since we're going, it sounds like we may be dealing with them truly separately.
Okay.
And that's easy enough to do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, those are all the questions I had. I'd like to open it up to public comment at this time. So let's open public comment, see if we have any.
We have one.
Okay. Let's bring in the user. Call in user one.
Hi, council members. As a taxpayer and a resident, I urge you to please prioritize the facilities this way. The SROP, let's spell it out, that's San Ramon Olympic Pool, which is widely used by school districts, by students, and also by our city. It brings in revenue because we charge people for a freestyle swim. So that is also a safety concern. The staff just said that it was, 1974, I think he said. This is concerning safety. Just imagine if there's an earthquake of some sort and you don't maintain it, then what's going to happen? And also, the library is widely used by our families for pickup, drop-off, and kids use those for research. And right now, school started, so I don't know why council members Zafar within community center, which is optional for students and families. Of all those three facilities, I would say that the least used by the number of population would be community center, because we also have the main facility at Central Park. That one is more popularly used. So for you to prioritize the Windermere Community Center, to me, is really absurd. Really absurd. You guys must have political agenda on your, somewhere hidden. That's also probably why your agenda did not go out to the public via East and Ramon, because you want to do what you want to do. So I am familiar with how you do things, but as the taxpayer and the resident and the parent and a community facility user, the priority without any agenda in mind and makes sense and really benefit, especially our students, would be San Ramon Olympic Pool, library, and then community center. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, caller. Any other callers request to speak?
We do not have any.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, I'll just offer up a couple of my own comments. First, I thought it was really helpful when we had the committee meeting over at the community center and the library several months ago. That was very helpful to kind of put eyes on and see what was going on there, and you could visualize what some of these changes were going to be that were being proposed at that time. I personally believe that in terms of the prioritizing the community center versus the library definitely meets the needs of a certain part of the population. But I think the community center, I would prioritize above the library at this point. The library is still serviceable. I think this will allow us to move forward with the Parks Master Plan vision with kind of rebranding of that community center. And I think it gives us some time to look for other funding opportunities, whether that's the county, whether that's the foundation, or other sources of funding to move forward with the library renovation. In terms of the pool, I'm kind of 50-50 on, which is a higher priority, the community center or the pool. Kind of split on that. It is the oldest facility, as indicated in the report. 1974. I was over there just last month, swimming myself, and there's some work that needs to be done. I think we made some good progress outdoors, but we definitely need to finish inside. And I don't really have much comment in terms of how to prioritize the actual work flow. My preference would be those items which are public facing. Probably, I mean, if you got to prioritize, as opposed to staff or administration facing, that would be where I would prioritize. So I would probably, it's kind of a toss up to me for the community center or the pool. But I agree with what I see as a staff recommendation to push out the library, buy a little bit of time on that, and look for additional funding opportunities and additional opportunity for the public to comment on how we move that library forward. And that's kind of how I feel on that. Sabina, anything else from you?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, and Kathy mentioned this too, right? The Arts Center and what we're trying to imagine that community center to be, right? It's not going, I mean, from everything I've heard and, being engaged with staff over the last 4 years, it's not just going to be another community center, right? It's going to be a center for the arts, a space which will create a more vibrant community center so that there's participation from all different age groups. From the adults and all of that. Right now we're using it, but I don't think for space that side we're maximizing the use of that facility. And Kathy can expand on this, because again, we've had multiple discussions and we've been year over year talking about reimagining that space as the center of arts, which is, we don't really have a cultural facility, if you will, like that in San Ramon. So that's why I'm usually passionate about what the vision is to make that space into just not a community center for events. The city is, our population is 85,000. Half of it lives in Doldy Valley, and we don't have enough amenities, cultural amenities, for, population to kind of divide up, right? I think, I don't know, Kathy can tell me, but most of our facilities get fully booked and getting more and more popular. That's why, I think that investing in that and creating it truly as art and, a cultural center for arts or, something like that would hugely benefit benefit our community, but also increase the value of, and the revenue that we could possibly generate from there. Back in the day, I remember when I moved 16 years ago, we used to have a community theater. And I used to take my kids over there they had, reading, and you could do cookies and milk and, things like that. So we really truly have an opportunity. We do the International Film Festival there. And that's a big draw for our community, but incorporating more arts into that center and truly creating it as a cultural arts center is where I think the community will hugely benefit from all over the city. Don't disagree with you about the pool as well. I think we need those facilities to be upgraded, but really the core and the heart of that, the pool and, everything else has been upgraded. So any money left over, yes, certainly we put it into lockers and some of the facilities that people who use the pool will use as well. I don't know if people will stop using the pool and paying for it if we, don't upgrade the lockers. I know they're, in great functioning, but certainly, I'm not minimizing that those should not be upgraded, but as we're prioritizing, we see what is going to add larger value to our community and kind of, what San Ramon has to offer. So for me, and it's beyond I think beyond just the report and discussion we've had today, the vision that is aligned to that arts center is, I think would create an amazing facility for us. So I don't know if, Kathy, you want to add to it and what the vision for that space is, which would truly make it a vibrant arts cultural center for us.
I think you said it really well, actually. And you've got most of the components, but I think what it is bringing a place that visual and performing arts can come together and they can cross-pollinate, because now we would have these art studios and music studios for high school students and adults. We'd have a larger dance studio where the bigger groups can practice and be that theater coming back to life, and having community theater all situated with a beautiful gallery space that's open and welcoming and isn't closed off like it is right now, and filled with a little more vibrant color and life. That's the vision. It's about building community and bringing our community back to connect again, and following the dotted line that the master plan created for us that said, hey, look, you have a kiln, you have a 2 small dance studio and a theater all located in one building. How do we build what we've already got on infrastructure and be able to just take it up that level? So yeah, that is the bigger vision for that space, and a huge amount of potential. If you look at surrounding cities, you'll see many cities building art centers from the ground up. We had the bones there, just need to pick it up a little bit more. So
yeah. And you mentioned other cities, right? So Livermore just built I can't remember what they're calling, but they have comedy nights now, and they have like world-class theater that's coming over there because they built a facility, and we really didn't have anything like that in the East Bay as well. So I'm just passionate about what we can do in terms of bringing some of these to San Ramon as well. So
Okay. That it? Good.
That was it.
All right, thank you. I was a little bit wishy-washy in my prioritization, I think, between the pool and the community center. Do you need me to break that out specifically? I will, if you need that, or do you have what you need?
Well, I think moving forward, the first shoe to fall will be seeing how the bids come back for the community center. That will give us an idea of what kind of funding we have to reappropriate at that point. And I think we'll be coming back once we get that settled. We'll be able to, once we get that in the works and get that approved by council, we can come back and discuss the reappropriation of the funding for SROP and how we'd like to move forward with that.
And there, if I may add, that there is funding available. It's just not the full amount.
Right.
That is the latest engineer's estimate for SROP. So we definitely can address the priorities of SROP. And it's just, we just need to figure out which ones we need to move forward with. And from what I heard today, it's important to address the ones that are more public facing than staff facing, so to speak. But then again, we will be adding more funds to it so we can add to that prioritization list.
Yeah, thank you. That would be my preference.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it might also be, another means by where we get you out to the facility for an infrastructure meeting also, and have you walk through what we have to propose for that above what Maria mentioned, and you mentioned about the public facing priorities at that time. So
Yeah, sure. Okay. From what I see on my agenda, then unless you're lacking in any guidance from us or discussion you'd like to hear further, then that will close item 4. Item 5, committee member comments. Any additional committee member comments?
No, I think we made some good comments.
Okay, I have none. I don't know of any unfinished business for item 6, and so we're at item 7, adjournment. This meeting is adjourned. Next meeting to be determined. Thank you very much. Great reports, and thanks for your feedback.
Thank you very much.